You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Welcome to another episode. Today we have Doug Lynam, a Marine, a monk, and a money manager walk into a bar and they're all Doug Lynam, slaying money monsters. Welcome, Doug.
Thank you, Jeanne. Great to be here.
Okay, so today we're going to dig right into it. Doug, you've written a book. It's called Taming Your Money Monster, and it's all about the paths to money mastery regarding our personalities and Enneagrams. Can you just share a little bit more about this?
Well, sure. So for those who aren't familiar with it, the Enneagram is a very robust personality typology system. Basically, think of it like cars. Like there's an infinite variety of cars on the road, and the one that you drive is completely unique with a unique year, make, and model, and you can customize it any way you want. But there's only so many ways you can design a car and have it be roadworthy. So there's SUVs, there's compact cars, there's sports cars, there's family sedans. Your car kind of falls in these general buckets, right? We call them archetypes. And same thing with your personality. There's only so many ways you can design a human ego. And we know this from the neurobiology research that's been coming out from a number of different sources, as well as through childhood developmental psychology, that there's basically 9 core ego defenses that people can develop in childhood. So your ego has a couple different parts to it, right? It's very complicated, and we'll try to make it simple for you. But essentially, your personality's got 2 components. You've got your nature, which is your DNA, that's fixed, and you've got your nurture, which is how you were raised. And the Enneagram helps explain the nurture portion of your personality, like how your childhood environment shaped the way that you view all of reality. In a sense, it was basically what was the ego defenses you developed in childhood to protect you from the biggest stressors or threats in that childhood environment. And because of the neurobiology, there's really that falls in. I could go into that, which I'll skip over for now. But basically, there's just 9 sort of archetypes, very broad brushstrokes of the ways that our egos form. And then there's lots of subtypes. Think of it like a fractal. Like if you know what a fractal is, it's a complex geometric shape. Top layer is very simple. Like we're going down. It goes down and down to infinite variety inside each of these types. So there's a lot of room here for individuality. But essentially, if I know your Enneagram type, I know what your core wounds are, what your greatest unconscious fear is, and what your greatest unconscious hope is, and then how that's going to relate to the way you view your finances, what you hope to gain from them, and the ways that you might approach them from, say, a negative perspective, how these mindsets can essentially cause you to derail your financial life if you're not careful.
How do people do this? They take a test,
Mm-hmm.
or they read your book, and they can do the test in the book?
You can find a test on my website, which is my name, DougLynam.com, and there's a really good test you can take there. And then also, if you buy the book, it will walk you through what you need to know there as well. But I think it's helpful to take a test. It's a great place to start. No test is 100% accurate, but the one I use is about 95% accurate, and it's really a great way. So you kind of have at least some framework going into the book. It can be very helpful.
So without doing the test, without reading the book, what happens? They do the test, they read the book, then there is a plan for their Enneagram of how to move forward.
Exactly right. Have you ever worked with the Enneagram? Are you all familiar with it?
Yes, I have. Yes, but I didn't use it for this. Yeah.
And do you know your type by chance?
Can't remember.
Okay.
Actually.
Well, maybe we could try to type you a little bit, or we could talk about your
Okay.
money monsters, or we could talk about mine, and kind of make it very practical and specific. Okay. So to figure out your type, now a test is much more accurate. This sort of armchair analysis is always fraught with difficulty, but we'll do our best and see where it comes out. So the first way, now this is going to get kind of personal. So if you don't want to share anything, or it gets too gritty, let me know. If you think of a color wheel, and on a color wheel, there's infinite variety of colors, just like there's infinite variety of our personalities. And I realize I'm mixing the metaphors here a little bit, but we can break this circle right into 9 pie slices for each of the 9 types. But then there's a higher order there. We could break those 9 types into 3 buckets. And this goes back to the neurobiology. We know that in the limbic system of mammals, there's really just 3 core negative emotions. And that's going to be anger, sadness, or sometimes shame. I think shame sometimes works better for people. So anger, shame, and fear. So We call these the triads of the Enneagram. So we want to try to figure out which triad you're in first. And one way to figure that out is to think about your darkest emotional space that you tend to go to when things are really bad for you, when life is very stressful or you're having a hard time. Which negative emotion do you tend to feel more of? Do you tend to feel more fear? Do you tend to feel more shame or sadness? Or do you tend to feel more anger?
I would say fear.
If that's true, then that narrows 6 of the 9, cuts 6 of the 9 out. So we're down to 3. So if you're in the fear triad, let me give you a quick summary of these 3 types and see which one of these might resonate more with you. So presumably, think of it like this: when you were born, you had a physical umbilical cord that connected you to your mother that was cut with a sharp knife. But you develop in childhood what I call a psychological umbilical cord that egoically creates this egoic codependence between you and your caregivers in your childhood. And that psychological umbilical cord has to be cut by sharp negative emotions, particularly the way we were told no in our like don't touch the hot stove, don't kick the dog, don't bite your sister. And those no's have to be backed up with a certain kind of force. And the force was usually, in your case, it sounds like it was maybe more fear was the more prevalent emotion that you encountered.
Yes.
Now, there's 3 ways to deal with that fear as an infant because you don't have a lot of coping tools. You can either internalize that fear, you direct it towards yourself. That creates what we call a type 5. I got that wrong. And we call them the investigator. And I call them the compact car of egos. You don't strike me as a 5, but maybe. And so
Okay.
5s, their greatest fear is that they're incompetent or that they don't have the skills to navigate reality. So they tend to be very withdrawn. They tend to live very much in their heads. I call them the compact car because they have a small gas tank for social interaction. They burn out socially pretty quickly,
Oh.
but they have a huge, rich inner life intellectually. So the great brainiacs like Einsteins and Warren Buffett, people like that. So their greatest fear is fundamentally that they're incompetent. And let's just pause on that and see if it makes sense and if that resonates with you at all.
I'm not sure, but you know what? Um, Definitely, I don't have a huge capacity for social interaction.
Yeah.
I can go out and go strong, and then I have to go home and like regroup if I
Okay.
meet a lot of people all at once. So I can do it, but it does drain me. Also, I'm not sure I understood like if it's when we have some sort of adversity, is it anger? I feel like it's a mix for me. I don't feel like it's like I'm always fearful. I feel like I was fearful when, I was a broke single mom with 2 kids and wondering, "How the heck am I gonna make this happen?" That was pure fear,
Sure.
right?
But that's external circumstances.
Yeah, I don't know if going back to childhood, I had a lot of fear.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think if I go back, I don't think that was I don't remember feeling fearful.
Okay. So yeah, think of your teens and your 20s. Yeah.
Maybe more what was it? Anger, shame. What was it? Anger,
Anger,
shame,
shame, or fear.
and fear. Maybe more shame. I don't know because I was shy. I can't. It's hard to. I'm not a good case study.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
kind of all over the place. Let's
all
just
right.
pretend. Let's just say that it was shame. Okay.
Okay. Great.
So let's pretend somebody has shame. Okay.
All right.
So basically, you would then. So the book talk because we can't go through the whole book, right?
Right.
But the book basically helps people identify where they are in the 3, and then it will have other subcategories, and then it will help people to move past. And it's not for life. This is for money. This is money mindset, so that people become wealthy and abundant. Correct?
Well, yes, and
Awesome.
it's your mindset and how you approach everything. And then I'm targeting it specifically to how you approach money. So
Right.
maybe we could talk about. I'm in the shame triad, so maybe we could talk about my type a little bit.
Okay.
We get a little bit
Let's
more
do that. Yeah.
specific, so we don't get
Yeah.
too lost in the weeds here with everybody. So if you're in the shame triad, we'll talk about the 3 types there real quickly, but I'll focus on mine and see if any of these resonate with you. So if you're in the shame triad, you have 3 choices. Internalize that shame. Internalize is kind of like giving yourself an emotional wedgie, like you're driving this
Mhm.
shame inwards towards yourself. And if you do that, you're a type 4, and that creates their greatest fear of not really having a unique identity or place in the world. So they feel like they're always the odd person out, and they're always trying to stand apart by being different and unique. Then on the flip side, you have type 2s, which externalize that shame, and we call the 4 the individualist, or I call them the classic car. Let me just say that. And then for the
Mhm.
2, we call them the helper. They're very much focused on service towards others because they have this externalized shame. They feel ashamed about how they think other people perceive them, which creates their greatest fear of not being lovable. So those are the two poles. And in the middle, you have my type, which is type 3. So I have both the internalized shame, meaning you feel ashamed about how you perceive yourself, and an externalized shame about how you think others perceive you. And type 3s, I call them the achiever or the race car. So we're always trying to accomplish things in the world. We're always trying to write the book, start the business, run the marathon, do the things to win validation, approval, to try to overcome our greatest fear, our unconscious fear, which is that we're fundamentally worthless, that we don't have any value. And so we're always trying to, win that validation through our external achievements. And then money can, of course, exacerbate that or amplify it or make it worse if we're not careful. Do any of those three types resonate with you at all?
Yeah, actually, I think maybe the third one, because I was actually at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and they said that and this resonated with me. They said really what people fear the most
Hmm.
is that they will not fulfill their potential. And I thought, wow, that just a
Yeah.
wave of, I don't know what swept over me when I heard that. I thought that is my greatest fear,
Yeah.
that I will not fulfill my potential. We know we're not going to fulfill our full potential, that I won't fulfill enough of my potential. That is literally my fear, because these are a bunch of high achievers in the room, right? So the fear is not that I'm not going to make enough money because I already, I'm good. And we always want more, right? But it was that's it, that I will not fulfill enough of my potential. If there's a fear I have, that's the underlying fear for sure. Now, I have a question. If when you did this, because you wrote the book,
Right.
literally,
Right.
since you figured this all out, have you become way more abundant? And have you
Yeah.
sorted out your money issues?
Absolutely. I mean, it's always a work in progress, right? I mean, we're all works in progress. I'm not going to claim perfection. That I wouldn't wish that some things weren't going better for me. It's in certain parts of my life, but it certainly gives me more clarity about where I'm going, what my pitfalls are likely to be, and how to avoid them. And so,
Mm,
so what I've layered on top of the Enneagram is another system. So for type 3s, right, like us, if that's your type, then you have this insatiable drive to achieve things. But then where it can get us in trouble, so I've layered on top of the Enneagram another system which I've created. I call it the attachment theory of money, which is based on the attachment theory of relationships. Same concept for those who are familiar with it. For those who are not, it basically says that here's my formulation of it: that when it comes to money, we can have two unhealthy mindsets. And the goal of the book is to get you to a healthy, secure relationship with money. So you feel really
mhm,
confident in your decisions and you're moving forward in a healthy way. But when you're moving perhaps in an unhealthy way, you can be either avoidant of money, where you kind of push money away unconsciously. You hate doing your bills. You don't do you procrastinate and stuff and just don't want to look at it because of the shame it brings up. So type 3s, we have a tendency to equate our net worth with our self-worth. And so when
yes.
our net worth is low, then that creates all this shame that comes up for us. So we tend to avoid dealing with the issues in front of us and we'll do anything else but look at that, which just compounds the problem. So I call that money monster the barrier. So there's two money monsters for each of the 9 archetypes in the Enneagram. So for type 3, the avoidant personality would be the barrier, basically like an ostrich who buries their head in the sand and just doesn't want to look at all the problems that are around them because it triggers too many negative emotions. And then on the flip side, I call it the anxious type for type 3, I call them the blinger. So because 3s care about social status a lot, we're very image conscious. And so one way to gain social approval is through status symbols. And so we have a tendency, if we're not careful, to spend, we might make a good income, but if we don't save and invest and give back, then our financial life is going to be in trouble. And so find a lot of high achievers, but then they spend everything they have on stuff because they want the fancy car, the clothes, the watch, the things, and that can really decimate their financial future. And then, of course, none of us are perfectly avoidant or perfectly anxious all the time. We might be jumbled. Those unhealthy money monsters might show up in different areas of our financial life. So if you break your financial life down to what I call the 4 pillars of finance, which are
Mhm.
earning, saving, investing, and giving. So earning, saving, investing, and giving are the kind of the 4 big pillars you want to think about when you're discussing your financial life. So you might, for example, be an anxious earner. You might make a lot of money, but you might be an avoidant saver because you're spending it all on stuff. That would be a blinger. Or you might be really good at the saving and the investing part, but then you have a hard time giving back. You're just doing it out of selfish self-aggrandizement. You're not using your money as a real tool for love and service to a suffering world. So that's really like, how do you use that's the bigger question of the book. A bigger theme running through it is, how do we help you tame these money monsters, build a secure relationship to your finances in all areas, so that you can live a life with options that lets your soul sing, so that
Mm.
it isn't about having money, it's about having the options to do the things that really make your life soar.
Right. Okay, that's awesome. Those 4 are great. It's good to have those 4, that you're earning, saving, investing, giving. Very important. It's not just about earning and saving. It's not about earning and investing. It's not about not earning and not giving. Okay, but Doug, share with everybody. You have a fascinating background and how you got into this,
Hmm.
because you were a monk for many years.
Correct.
Was it a Benedictine monk?
That's
Did you
right.
say? All right. So a Catholic Benedictine monk, and you got into, now everybody's wondering, how does he know about money? Can you just tell people your story of how you got into money management?
Yeah, it's a long story. I'll try to keep it short. But I grew up outside Chicago, a town called Naperville, Illinois, and my family was fairly well to do. My dad was a CEO, an executive for an oil company. But when my mom was a certified financial planner. But when they divorced when I was about 6 or 7, you know, money became weaponized in my house, is what it felt like from my childhood perspective. You'd ask your mom for something, and she'd say, "Go ask your dad. He's got all the money." You ask your dad, he'd say, "Well, I give your mom all my money for alimony and child support, so go ask your mom." And it was kind of financial chicken game that was being played every time. And so I got my brothers and I think we all rebelled against that in very different ways. But I basically said, went off, studied philosophy and mathematics in college, and then I joined the Marines, hoping to, find a life of purpose and try to escape the corporate world, whatever. And then I kind of realized that I graduated at the top of my class from officer candidate school with the Marines. And then I still had to finish college. So they sent me back to college for one more year. And during that time, I kind of had a realization that, unresolved anger issues and high explosives were a bad combination. And maybe there was a higher calling I could seek out. And I had some good
Hmm.
mentors who guided me along the way. And I basically turned down my commission as an officer and joined a Benedictine monastery. I figured if I was going to leave the Marines, what would be a higher calling? And
Hmm.
I was basic. And I also thought it was a great way to find the meaning of life. If I was going to figure out this whole what's the meaning of life thing, I thought a monastery would be a great place to try to sort those things out. And it was in a lot of ways. But when I joined, I also took a vow of poverty and obedience and all the other vows of monasticism, and kind of renounced worldly life. And
Hmm.
partly kind of a rebellion to my parents. It was a great way to piss them off in a way, and also find my higher callings. And I thought I could just leave this whole money thing behind. But then about 3 years after I joined the community, our monastery went bankrupt, because it turns out we all had these real money monsters. We all had this really avoidant attitude towards money. We all hated dealing with it. None of us wanted it to really, face the music. But decades of financial mismanagement had piled up. By a weird twist of fate, I took over as the business manager for the community. And I realized that even though I was financially illiterate at the time, even though I grew up in privilege and my mom was a financial planner, talking about money in my home was, it was easier to talk about sex than money. Let's put it that way. And so it was it was really a taboo topic. So I didn't know anything, and so I had to self-educate. But I realized that the bar was set pretty low. I couldn't do a worse job than what was in front of me. So I did that. It took about 2 years to dig the community out of bankruptcy. And then monastery guests would come to us all the time with problems, and they would ask me to pray for them. And I'd be like, sure, happy to do that. But you know what? A budget might actually work a little bit better. One of the great spiritual insights I realized is that a lot of people's spiritual struggles, or their existential crises, or whatever they're going through, they often have a financial component that's causing them, or it's in the background lurking. It's either a primary or a secondary issue of what's really causing them stress in their life. And if I could resolve those stressors, I could prevent an awful lot of suffering for a lot of people. And so
Mm.
I did that for many years. And then I also was in a teaching order. So our community, I was the head of the mathematics department at a private school. And so I started teaching econ and personal finance as a fun elective, and it became a very popular course. And then the story goes on from there. I'll give you just a quick punchline, but basically, after 20 years of monastic life, I realized that our community wasn't going to survive, and I needed to
Mm.
go build a better life for myself. And I was kind of done with the structure and the rigidity of the community. And so I left, became an investment advisor, became a partner at an asset management firm, managing about $250 million in assets. And now I've got these 2 books that fell into my lap through HarperCollins. I'm a publisher, author, coach, speaker, and investment advisor.
Very good. That's so fascinating. So you did have a financial background thing with your mom. So it was somewhere in your genes. Okay. So what was your first book called?
It's called From Monk to Money Manager, a former monk's financial guide to becoming a little bit wealthy and why that's okay.
A little bit wealthy. Okay, a little bit wealthy. I think it's okay to be a lot wealthy. Maybe we need to write another book. Make as much money as you possibly want because it's great. That should be the next title.
That is kind of the second book in a way.
Okay. Then you also have a TED Talk about what we can apply from monastic life to business. So just share a little bit, like just 1 or 2 things we can apply from monastic life to business success.
Well, I think the thing that one of the real contemplative tools is just sort of a trifecta in monasticism, which is contemplation, compassion, and action. So, how do we bring those 3 principles of contemplation, thinking deeply, seeing reality as it truly is, having compassion for ourselves and those around us, and then taking right action to move forward? And if you take those 3 principles and apply them to your financial life, they can really supercharge your process. So you need that contemplative wisdom and that contemplative, some sort of meditation practice, anything, prayer, whatever it is for you, yoga, journaling, hiking in the woods, to be grounded and be centered in yourself. So you're seeing yourself accurately and you're seeing your reality of your circumstances accurately. And then again, having compassion for your mistakes and those around you. We all have stressors, and we've got to be kind to ourselves and the people around us. And then moving forward appropriately. So that would be the quick takeaway. Of course, I've got a whole TED Talk on that and how that applies. I won't give you the whole spiel here.
Okay, so basically the contemplation and the compassion and the right action. Okay, so action came into it because it is about action. And when you were talking about how people said, come and pray for me, I love it. Of course, pray. But sometimes people ask for prayers, and I'm actually thinking, well, actually, if you just go do that, that would actually work. Sure, I'll pray you go take the action, actually, because there's an action. And I think that people are like, pray for me. I love it. I will. And you're correct. Sometimes there's a simple action they could take.
Yeah, God's not going to work a miracle to solve a problem that you have the power to fix.
Right. And God helps those who help themselves. I mean, that's the oldest saying in the book. Okay, great. Well, Doug, this has been highly fascinating. And I think it's also fascinating that somebody that was a monk for 20 years is now a full on money manager, and you still work as such, and you're working on people's money stories. So tell me what's your mindset or a philosophy now? Because I know you've been through a lot. Now, where are you? Like, what's the mindset you want to share with people?
Well, I used to think that when I joined the monastery, I believed St. Paul when he said that the love of money is the root of all evil. And then I, of course, studied some ancient Greek and read the original, and it's very much more nuanced than what we get in the English translation. But I'm now more in the Mark Twain camp, who humorously said that it's the lack of money that's the root of all evil. That what we now know from the data is that your socioeconomic status is the best predictor of your mortality, of when you're going to die. Because poor people will get hit with a laundry list of things that you really don't want. Right? They get higher rates of obesity, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, workplace injury, domestic violence. The list goes on, mental illness. The list just goes on and on and on. Because being poor is extremely stressful. It's like walking over a tightrope over a pit of alligators, like every single day. And the stress that puts on your mental health is incredible. And we now know from the research that your perceived socioeconomic well-being, right, your perceived financial well-being can have a bigger impact on your overall mental health more than your job satisfaction and your relationship security combined. So it's a really important part of our mental health, of our physical well-being. And so I think of myself more as yes, I want to help people build wealth, but mostly I want to help them avoid suffering. So I kind of call myself a suffering prevention specialist. So how can I help you avoid? Now, life has got to have suffering. There's no way around that. But money can solve a lot of problems. It can't solve everything. It's not going to buy you happiness. But if they say money can't buy happiness, but poverty can't buy anything. Until you get your basic security needs met, it's going to be very hard for you to feel very, very safe in this world.
Also, it's hard to develop because it's hard to be creative. It's hard to be expansive. It's hard to give. If you're worried about paying your bills, There's no creativity in that. You can't expand and you're worried and it affects people around you, affects your health. So I believe that money can create happiness because for me, a lack of anxiety, because you were talking about the other types, I'm an anxious type.
Yeah.
A lack of anxiety for me is pure happiness.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just the lack of problems is happiness. So I don't know what other people think happiness is, but I think it's just peace of mind. That's all. It's not buying stuff. And I'm not in that category that you said about people that like buy a bunch of stuff because I'm not really that materialistic. I mean, I like certain nice things, but I get what you're saying. Some people don't need to buy stuff to feel good about themselves.
Right.
And some
Right.
some people love shopping. I actually don't like shopping.
It's great.
But so be it.
I'm not a shopper.
Yeah, no, I buy when I have to. It's like, okay, I guess I got to buy that. I just think of the time it's taking, and I'd rather be doing something else. Literally, everything for me is a time expense.
Yes.
And where could I allocate that time? You know what I'm saying?
That's a classic type 3 behavior. So threes are known as efficiency experts, right?
Mm,
We tend to be very
yes.
efficient. We tend to have a lot of to-do lists that we love checking
Mhm.
off boxes and getting shit done. So excuse my language.
Exactly. Well, great. I guess I'm a 3. Okay. Well, thank you so much. This has been very interesting. Everybody can find a link in the show notes to find that test, and you can find the book. It's right there in the back. And thank you for turning up, Doug. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you got a lot out of this, figuring out who you are and getting your money mindset to a better place. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.